All right, shall we get started? I think everyone is here, so let's review the previous week.
I posted the previous week goals in today's agenda. So we could start at prior week goals. The fixed disk utilization metric, we pinged Ben, but I think we're going to have to take a look at this ourselves, which it's perfectly fine. I just haven't had a chance to do that this week. So hopefully if we are able to deploy successfully today, maybe that's something I can do later today. Jarv was doing logging work if you want to speak up.
I don't really have much to cover here. It looks like we're in pretty good shape with logging. There's one outstanding issue or one known outstanding issue that I uncovered today while doing some additional failure testing. It looks like some log messages aren't being properly indexed by Elasticsearch. I'm doing a chart update to log 400 error reasons. So I'm working on that now to kind of dig into what the problem is. But I added the issue to the epic, and that's the only outstanding issue we have right now. So otherwise, logging is good. We have all the logs that we expect for registry and sidekiq, so that's good. And that's all. Then the next is we should be running in production. We're not running in production.
We could potentially demo that.
Let's do it live, yeah.
Yeah. So the last item on this list was determining why a rollback did not occur after we had timed out a deployment. Turns out we had just missed an option in our Helm file configuration when we migrated from our K8s managed variety of Helm and command line options into Helm file, which uses a configuration item for this. So this was actually a relatively easy fix that was done relatively quickly. So, do we have any questions, or should we proceed towards trying to deploy something into production?
I just asked Jar to confirm whether the issue I linked in the logging work item is correct. If not, could you please just add the correct issue? All right, Skarbek, let's go for it. Exciting moment.
All right, so I will share my screen. I'm going to share the pipeline. I'll bump the font size for everyone's viewing pleasure. So I ran into an issue yesterday where also found two other secrets that were not populated in our k8s vault, but these are already being populated inside of our infrastructure. So I ran a dry run earlier today with all the corrections in place. So we should see two changes to our secrets, one being the one that we did a change request for this morning, which was our workhorse credential, and then our Rails secret, which should now be populated correctly. I ran this stuff locally, so I know they will be populated like we want to. Otherwise, the rest of this diff looks the exact same that we've seen in the past. So I'm not going to go through it because it's really long. So at this point, I'm ready to proceed to hitting this play button unless anyone has any concerns.
Ping the SRE on call.
Mikkel, you're on this call, right?
Yeah.
I'm pinging you.
On.
And Zoom needs to just... Zoom is always in the way. So I'll hit retry. This is the latest master job. We never did revert our attempt yesterday, so this is still in master. So we're just going to hit the retry on this job. And this is going to work today.
So this is to roll out the sidekiq worker that subscribes to a null queue, correct? Yeah.
Yep.
I was only half joking. I'm going to ping you, Mikkel, in production channel with the link to the issue.
Oh.
So we follow the process.
I can comment on the issue as well.
My apologies, Marin.
No need to apologize. I was not clear with what I asked.
I wish the CI would auto scroll for me. Jarv, I commented about this yesterday about the millions of evicted pods in production. I forgot to look into that yesterday. So we still have a very polluted production environment with GitLab registry having a lot of evicted pods.
Okay, I'll open up an issue for that now.
Jarv, it's been a fairly quiet shift today. Do you want to sync up on the sidekiq log errors after this call?
The sidekiq log errors? I'm sorry, what?
I was just offering you some help with debugging the problems that you're having
Oh.
uploading.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think what I was looking for was the reason for the failure on the Elasticsearch side, but Igor mentioned that that might be difficult to track down, so maybe time would be better spent increasing our logging on the client side. And you can either set the log level to debug, but that's really noisy, or the plugin has a special option that says, show me the reason for 400 errors, which is by default set to false, which is kind of silly in my opinion, but whatever. So I'm updating the chart now and we can reproduce the error. I think once I reproduce the error and see the reason, then maybe we'll have an idea of what's going on.
All right, so the pod is now running. I'm just waiting for it to get into a ready state. Hopefully that happens before this 5-minute timeout.
All right, to repeat again, distribution is working in this release to improve the startup times, correct?
Yeah, there's one remaining item that I recall related to boot snap that's going to improve the boot time of the container. Okay, we're now ready on this pod. The one thing I'm noticing, and I didn't really notice this until trying to push this into production, is that it takes a really long time for the sidekiq pod to switch between running and ready. I think after this call, I will spin up an issue to investigate why that is occurring. Okay, so job succeeded. So we are now running a null queue in production. So let me make my share less busy. So let's just go to, oh, dashboards is in the wrong window. Dashboards. And the goal here is that we should be able to find our sidekiq pod running in production. So we have our deployment, it's running version 12.8.5. We have our one pod running, and we're getting our memory usage, CPU usage. So quota and stuff will probably start populating after a little bit more time has passed. So we now have metrics, which is good. So let's look for our logs. Who's pinging me?
Scarbeck, you can just click the link in the Zoom chat. I already have it up in case if you don't have it
Thanks,
saved.
because it's, you know, still loading for me. Thank you, sir.
I pasted both the dashboard link and Kibana link in the doc.
Perfect. So after you search twice in Kibana, stuff shows up, and we see precisely what we need to see. So let's drill down into the actual log message. Message, add to the panel. Okay. And this is precisely what I'm expecting to see out of the container. The one thing I don't see is which queue you're pulling from. I wonder if that just hasn't made it into Kibana yet.
You mean, I see it listing on queues nil.
There it goes. Yep.
Yeah.
It just popped in. So we are now running in production. Is anyone excited?
Yay!
Super exciting stuff.
Okay, so
Let's look at the graphs a bit, yes.
I don't need that one. It's this one that we kind of care about because this is the one that's just going to show us basic information. But we're not going to really see anything super exciting because the pod's not going to be doing anything at this moment in time. Is there something in particular that you want to look at, Marin?
So when you say it's not doing anything in particular, what do you mean?
It's looking for a queue called null, and it's going to pull work from a queue called null, which does not exist.
Okay.
This is simply here to make sure, one, the deployment worked, the configurations are sane, so the pod started up, so we know the configurations are sane. We got past the issue that we found out yesterday, so I think really we should proceed to our next steps. I don't know if you want to use the demo for that, but we potentially could.
Use the demo for this.
Okay, so our next step, let me...
Unless you're wanting to tell me that there is something that we should hold off for. I'm not getting that feedback from any of you, at least.
If anything, it's just going through, inspecting the pod, looking at the configurations to make sure they all look sane. Being that the pod started up, I'm not as worried about it, but this is a production system, so it would be wise to potentially do that. But doing that, I would recommend not doing that inside of this demo just because that will take me a bit of time to go through everything. Beyond that, our next step is to perform a merge request of number 164.
Can we do that in parallel? Can Jarv do the checks while you prepare the rollout?
Certainly, because we do have a... this merge request will touch both staging and production. So we're changing the image that we're being used, the one that is the latest image that I was able to get created, which is not from the last 2 days, but I think 3 days ago. 3/13. I can't see today's date. Oh, it is today. Let me make sure that image exists. I don't want to steer us the wrong direction here. 313, 835 this morning, 672, 812, DE738. Okay, so that image does exist in our registry. So this merge request, Jarv, it's number 164. This will do two things. It updates our staging image. That way it's just a sanity check that the image works in staging. And it will also update the image in production, while simultaneously changing to the project export queue, allowing us to pull from project export.
It looks good, Sarbeck, though. I do have a question. Let me share my screen.
Okay, I stopped. Okay.
I was just looking at the log messages from this queue, and the first thing I see here is we're using 12.8.5 as the container image. Is that correct? I thought we were using an auto-deploy tagged image.
Not yet.
But I thought this change here looks like it's changing the tag from this older auto-deploy to this newer auto-deploy.
You're looking at the staging deployment.
Uh-huh.
At the right above that is the production file.
Right. I see. So we weren't using, yes, okay. And so we were using this 12.8.5 image before.
Correct.
Because that's in our values, YAML?
No, we're just using what the Helm chart provides us by default.
Yeah, right.
Which is going to be, in this case, the latest release, which is 12.8.5.
Cool.
Because we're running version 3.1.2 or 3.0.2, something 3, something 2, somewhere in there.
Got it.
Okay, Karvik, just to be clear here, while I do want to see this moving forward, I don't want us to move forward if neither of you are feeling confident that we should be, right? Like if you need time to take a look at everything, go for it. I'm just wondering what kind of expectations do we have with this double checking, right?
The double checking is going only as far as making sure the configurations look sane inside of the pod. Like I want to be able to compare the configuration built inside of the pod to a sidekiq node running in production. Beyond that, I'm confident in moving forward with the plan of action as is. I just want a bit of time to compare configuration files to make sure there's not something that looks egregious that needs to be looked at or investigated.
Okay, so my question still stands. Can Jar compare those two things while you roll this thing out and stop us in the rollout? Because it's gonna take some time, right? Like for all these pipelines to run.
We could do that relatively quickly, I think, because there's only one configuration file that we seriously care about anyways.
Okay.
And that's going to be the, I'll have to find it, but it's doable.
Okay. Jar, you okay with that? All right, we have a thumbs up. Let's do it that way.
Probably not something I could share my screen with because these configuration files are going to have secret tokens and stuff though. That's the unfortunate part. Okay, so Jar, have you you approve this merge request?
Yeah, I did. It's ready to be merged.
Yeah,
Whenever you're ready.
Let me get rid of the whip status, and then let me also find the pipeline for it and make sure I update the merge request with it before we merge it.
Do we have a separate change request for this, or do we want to use the existing one?
No, I rolled this into the existing change request procedure. So it passed.
Yeah, this was, Mikhail, this was just to make sure that we are running first before because we don't have a zero state to compare with. So now we can roll sidekiq to actually take jobs.
Makes sense.
Jarv, while I'm looking at configuration files, I updated that merge request with the ops pipeline. Do you want to just run through that with the people that are on this call just to show off the expected changes that we expect to see between the two staging and production environments and nothing in pre and canary?
Sure. So here's the MR on gitlab.com. This is step 3 in CR. Here's the branch on ops. We go to the pipeline, and so what we're expecting to see here are some changes for production and staging, since the tag changed for both. So we can look at the dry run for staging. You can see that the image is updated here. Looks good. And let's look at the GPRD dry run. So we have first the queue, which is switched from null to project export. So that looks good. And then we have the image, which is updated from 12.8.5 to the auto deploy. Looks good.
Jarv, can you refresh me on where configuration files are supposed to live inside of our export nodes, our VMs?
You're like SSHing into the pod, and you want to look at the config file.
The
Sorry?
node. I got the configuration file in the pod up. I'm looking for the associated configuration file for the node, not the GitLab RB, but like the generated stuff that Omnibus will pipe out.
Var opt GitLab.
I thought you meant node Kubernetes node. You mean like the VM?
VM.
Yeah. So var opt GitLab, GitLab Rails, and then it should be under there.
I don't know why I can't remember this information.
I think we'll have to create a dictionary going forward. You can only use VMs for VM nodes. You can only use nodes for Kubernetes nodes.
Yeah, something like that.
Jarv, while I continue doing this, do you want to roll it out to, you want to merge that merge request and roll it out to staging?
Sure. And here's the pipeline. My wife just brought me a snack. I think she's really bored. There's like, not much to do in Slovenia right now. Everything's shut down.
Or maybe she was just being nice.
No, that's possible too. Yeah. She actually would do something like that.
I see some minor differences related to OmniAuth between the production VM and production Kubernetes. Being that this is sidekiq project export, I don't think we really care too much about OmniAuth having a difference here.
OmniAuth.
Because that's directly related to being able to log into the system, correct? And the ability to use SAML or single sign-on for various services like Twitter, GitHub, Bitbucket, and Salesforce.
Does project exports? We can do project exports. No, that's for imports. We can import from GitHubs and all that.
Well, this is specific to logging in, though, I think, right?
I don't know.
So just an update on staging. The pods are coming up now. They just take a long time, so we're waiting.
Okay, that's good. Excuse me. The port number for the sidekiq exporter is different.
I think that'll be okay.
I think so too. I'll check that in a second because we should be able to see that as a target.
I mean, Prometheus operator will just auto detect it, right? And it,
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I'm going to validate that.
And we're getting sidekiq metrics in staging. So, and the port number is the same in staging, right?
Correct.
So then I would suspect it's fine, right?
It better be. It's going to be. Let's see. How can I do the port forwarding for this? Okay, so I could close that. So
I just like to an example, Scarbeck, if you need one.
thank you kindly. That just saved me some time.
I assume you want to get directly to Prometheus on the pod?
Yeah.
Okay, the deployment for staging is done.
We really need to expose Prometheus to the outside world from our GKE clusters to make life a little easier. Okay, so I'll check all metrics, but I would like to proceed if no one has any qualms.
Thumbs up for me.
Okay.
Yeah, let's do it.
Well, then in that case, I will share my screen again, and we'll just hit the play button on this job. Mikhail, I'm verbally notifying you that we're making a change in production.
I'm super excited how easy it is to roll out to production. You just click a button and you get a nice Helm diff. Everything is
I'm gonna scroll up to see the diff just one more time.
Yeah, sure. So configuration change, this is probably related to the fact that our image changed. As you can see, we changed the image from 12.8.5 to our auto deploy image from this morning.
That's it, sidekiq.
That was sidekiq. That was the dependencies container. Changing from the null queue to the project export queue. So once this pod comes up, it'll start pulling from that particular queue. And just a reminder, we are limiting the HPA so that we will only get one pod. So Kubernetes will only export one project at a given moment in time. Both the concurrency level is set to 1 as well as the pod counts are set to 1.
That sounds good. We just need to confirm that this is performing and it's actually working without any errors before we decide any further.
All right, the pod has now entered a running state. So now we're just waiting for it to become ready.
Skyberg, this looks quite a lot better than last week or week before that. Am I mistaken? Because I remember it is timing out, right?
Yeah, we have fewer pods. We don't have any pods in production, so we don't have to wait to cycle through all of them. Like we have because of the load test. So this is the first, probably the only deployment that's going to be nice for production because we're probably going to scale up. I don't know. We may not scale up that much though. We'll see.
We have an issue to investigate what deploys look like when you have more than one pod, because we may need to tune the timeout that Helm waits for before it decides to roll back. Because these pods are taking a long time. Like it's been 3 minutes and the pod is yet to enter the ready state. And if it's going to be like that for one pod, we're going to run into a large issue when it comes to deploying in general.
Okay. So, yeah, that means order of priority there will be this running, even if it's only with one pod, to collect data on how we're behaving with real world workloads. And then at the same time, increase the pressure on distribution to actually work on speeding this up. And then at the same time for us, ensure that we don't deploy manually, but with auto deploy. There we go.
If someone has the agenda open, can someone make a comment that we need to create an issue to address the fact that it takes nearly a minute to go from running to ready for these sidekiq pods?
We'll add that.
I'll create an issue. I just want to make sure it gets noted down since I don't have the agenda on my screen. So the job succeeded, so we should now start being able to pull work. So I'm going to pull up the logs, and because I can't auto refresh, I'll just hit the button manually over and over and over again. This was probably the old pod shutting down. Let me add the pod name to the data here. Where you at? This one. And then, so was that the old pod? Yeah, this was the old pod. Oh, Jarv has me filtered on the pod name. Okay, so that was the old pod shutting down. And here are the logs from the new pod starting up.
So we really don't get a lot of project exports. You know, they don't happen at a high frequency. We may be waiting a while for this pod to pick up one.
That's true. That's true. Also, we should upgrade to sidekiq Pro for some features and support.
Yeah. We could stop project export sidekiq. I mean, that's a safe operation, and which would force the pod to pick up one and then start it again.
Jarv, you should have enough projects in your personal GitLab account to fill up our queues.
No, I don't have like 100 projects to cycle through. I only have that in staging. We probably should have, because we can't just export the same product over and over because of rate limits. We need to cycle through like 10 of them.
Can you check how many exports are we doing at the moment?
Yeah, I think so.
Always forget which sidekiq dashboard this is actually supposed to be. Queue detail? Not queue detail.
Yeah, there
yeah,
change it to export.
Yeah,
Detail on the top.
Go at the top, queue.
And queue, that's now set
all the way at the top. There you go.
Okay. Type you can type in the box export.
My computer doesn't like it when I try to type. Project.
So it looks like about 1 a minute or so based on logs.
Queue time, execution time, error rate. None of these tell me how many are in the queue.
I just put it in the Zoom chat. Just click on that.
Okay.
And they're completing within seconds.
I would like to ask the on-call to see whether we are okay to stop for a minute to see a couple of jobs being picked up.
I just got k8s for HPA unable to scale up.
Oh, okay.
That's expected because we limited the HPA to 1, so it can't scale up.
But should we alert on this right now?
No, this is an alert that we have to ensure that we're not... Wait, for clarity, did you get an alert or a page?
Page.
A page.
So we probably have it as a page because if we say for the GitLab registry, which is taking all the traffic, if we scaled up to its maximum pod count, something is probably wrong. So the fact that it exists is a valid alert / page, but we don't need to be paging for this because we're in experimental phase at this moment in time. So we should silence that for quite a while, and we should probably revisit how those rules operate in situations such as this, because I think we were considering at one point in time maxing out the HPA to start with because the time it takes for this pod to start up was so lengthy at one point in time.
So in that case, it sounds like I should create a silence for the sidekiq exporter HPA and leave it unsilenced for the registry, right?
Correct. Like we don't want to impact the registry alerting here.
Yeah, I'll create the silence now.
Okay.
We should add to our change request as well for the next time.
Yes. All right, Marin, you had a question for Mikhail before we got interrupted by that alert.
Yeah, wanted to check whether it makes sense for us to stop the queue for a few minutes to force some export jobs to go to the Kubernetes.
I think so. Yeah, I think so. Are you thinking about stopping all of them or just some of them?
We would probably want to stop all of them, or all the ones in the VMs at least.
So yeah, the sidekiq export has dedicated VMs, so we would just stop sidekiq. We would GitLab CTL stop sidekiq on just those VMs.
But on all of the project export.
Yeah, all of the project exports, and this will there's a grace period of like 20 seconds or so to wait for any jobs that are in progress to finish. But I don't really see much in the logs anyway, so I think it's going to be fine. And then the next job should hopefully be picked up by the pod. I think it's pretty low risk.
Fine.
I mean, yeah. I mean, if it doesn't get picked up, we'll just start sidekiq again. And
yeah, and the expectation from users is not that these will be executed immediately, so I think it's fine.
Yeah, exactly.
Even if our pod errors out on an export, it can be retried, right? Yeah.
Yeah, so if
Yes.
it errors, it'll be retried.
I want to force this because we are planning to leave this running over the weekend. So it's better to actually see an error right now than have errors ramping up over the weekend, even if it's limited.
Scarbeck, I'm going to go ahead and update the change issue for this.
Thank you.
So I've got the command ready to stop sidekiq cluster in our VMs. Are we ready?
Yeah, I think so. I also updated the change issue.
Okay. So now we'll hit the enter key. All right, so it's down on all 4 of those nodes. I'll just run a status for sanity. Okay, so they're stopped.
And just like that, we have an export on Kubernetes. Well, at least we have one that's starting. That was really fast.
I hope it works.
Yeah, me too. Started.
I mean, I don't know how long it's going to take.
I'm going to go ahead and do an export of a project that I know that's very small.
It's going to get queued up behind this person.
That's true.
Well, at least you'll know it worked if it exports it.
Yep.
Yeah, yeah.
All right,
Mikhail,
I'm tailing the log directly out of the pod because that might be faster than Elasticsearch giving me this data as well.
Mikhail, I'm seeing some drops in aptX at the moment. I don't know if it's related to us stopping sidekiq on export node.
Is it for Gitly service?
It seems so, yes. I'm trying to zoom in now.
Okay.
Maybe we should add another pod or two. Scarbeck, what do you think?
I can.
I don't know. I mean, obviously there are some jobs here that are taking like longer than a minute, but most of them are taking much faster than that. I guess like I can check the project.
What would you check on the project?
See if it's a big one.
Good idea. Do that before. Actually, looking at the data, can we? Maybe Bob could help me here, but I'm seeing that there's a meta user in this.
Yeah.
Was this kicked off by someone internally?
Arihant is somebody that works for GitLab, yes.
Exactly. I'm wondering if maybe not the person that owns the project did not kick off this project export, but someone internally did.
That seems to look like that's
Okay.
the case. Which means you could ask them if the export worked.
Yeah. Jarv, I did not execute the scale up for the sidekiq export. Did you want me to, or did you want to continue looking at the size of that project first?
Okay,
well, it looks the Gitly one is our old friend file 45. So it doesn't seem related to this. But that
Yeah, it's like
conclusion up to you.
It's like a 10 gigabyte. Like it says 9 point. Yeah, it's big.
Okay, we need to
Why
scale
is like
up.
the first yeah, why the first one like we get is like this huge project? That sucks. Let me see, like I can maybe if he's been doing lots of exports, I can see if he's done an export in the past and how long it took.
Okay.
Let me just check that real quick. But yeah, so
The saturation dropped on file 45 already.
Okay,
So I
so
think
it
it
was
was
something
just a-
temporal. Mhm.
Yeah, previous
Maybe the
file.
export.
yeah, I see attempts at exporting this project and failures. I do not see a successful one. Let's
Okay.
scale up. Let's add like 2 more pods.
2 more. All right. So I'll scale up to 3. And actually, I'm kind of concerned that the HPA will scale me immediately back down.
Can we set the min pods? Yeah, I don't see this product ever being successfully exported. We really need like we shouldn't be allowing people to export things that are just like always going to fail, right?
Yeah, I think the first request is actually to have some visibility in what this is doing, right? Because we don't know.
And eventually we want people to be able to export projects like that.
Yeah. I'll share with you this Kibana link.
All right. So it is confirmed that the HPA interrupts a manual scale operation. So I'm going to edit the HPA and set it to a maximum of 3. Max replicas 3. And then I will manually scale it to, oh, no, it picked it up automatically for me. I guess metrics are already up there. Cube control top pods in GitLab. Yeah, it's already over the CPU usage, so that makes sense. All right, Jarv, 2 more pods are on their way to coming online. It'll be about 3 minutes.
Is everyone okay if I announce this in the company announcements at the moment so that everyone is aware?
Sure.
Right.
So just being mindful of time. We are over our meeting time. If anyone needs to hop off.
I do, but I want to see an export complete.
So looking at the dashboard, our sidekiq queuing latency per job just skyrocketed for product export, and that's because this one job is just holding up other things that are queued.
That's expected.
We have how many exports in the queue? We have 5 exports that are waiting. One of them is mine. And I just now see, I think another one just started.
Yeah, I see 2 started, but none of them are ours, or nothing with the word Jarv attached to it.
Yeah.
Oh, I see a done. I see 2 dones.
Hopefully successfully.
Yes.
Let me share this. I'm sharing the wrong screen. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
So here's
mine succeeded.
yeah. I see a Sophie Inc. productivity GitLab backup. Where's the successful method? Done.
Like I just downloaded my export. It definitely worked.
Okay, good.
So
That's
we're
to
good.
hear.
Now my concern is that
Jar
I guess
registry test is done.
we need to set a minimum pod number, and I don't know what that number should be. Maybe we should make it a little bit higher than we think we should, like make it like as high as 5.
But my question here is, we are still planning to have VMs process jobs, right?
Yes.
Oh, right. For the weekend, we're gonna turn. Yeah, I was getting ahead of myself. I'm already thinking like we're gonna leave it.
No, I think
Kubernetes. Yeah,
let's leave VMs on. But if you want to run more pods side by side,
yeah.
let's do that. I would be fine with that if SRE on call is fine with that. But
Yeah,
I don't want
guess
to
for the
run without VMs over the weekend.
Yeah,
No.
fair enough.
No, I wouldn't want to leave. Sorry, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I think then if we have the VMs, then one pod is probably okay. Like because it won't matter. Like we still have the same capacity that we currently have.
No, what we can do is actually have more capacity on Kubernetes, right? But as a fallback, have VMs to also process.
Yeah, I see. Because if we have like more pods, there's a higher probability that the pod will pick up the job versus the VMs.
Yeah, and it would be interesting to compare the timings of like the average timings of the exports on the pods, because we'll want to know that eventually.
Yeah, that sounds like a good idea.
How about we run with 4 pods? That way Kubernetes is one node equal to all 4 of our sidekiq nodes.
Yeah, that sounds fine to me. 4.
Okay. I'll create a merge request to do precisely that.
Great.
All right, so I think that concludes my demo. I could create that merge request outside of this meeting. I'll do that as soon as we're done here.
Thank you.
I don't know about you folks, but this is extremely, extremely exciting. So great work all around. If I could high five you now, and if it was allowed, I would. We can do that. That's the Corona high five. Hope you all have a great weekend, and I'll post this to company announcements, and yeah, we'll mention all of you.
Fantastic job, guys.
Thanks.
See you later.
Have a great one.
Bye.
Later.